1977.
Can't hear you.
Delhi. You can't hear me? Okay. My name is Pradeep Khanna. My question is, if you go fast forward, say 10 years from now on, do you see the likes of Google giving degrees which are individually customized? Number one. And if yes, then in that environment, do you see only the Ivy League type of universities surviving and then prospering, and everybody else, kind of dying out? To anybody in the panel?
So I see it in two ways. So one, when you take a look at the world, education is roughly a $5 trillion industry. There is one of the largest industries in the world. Because of all the factors that we've talked about and the lack of innovation, the next generation of companies that emerge, I do believe there will be Google-like companies that emerge in the education sector. It may not be Google, but there will be Google-like companies that emerge in the education sector. The ability, as Pradeep said, to scale dramatically. And once you understand education has not taken science, either the learning sciences or management science, and applied it systematically. The opportunity to do that and dramatically move over the cost performance curve is here today. That is going to allow for large-scale companies to be formed, and there will be some players like Google that is in the business of accessing and organizing content for the individual user that have a significant competitive advantage. It's not clear to me that they understand enough about that kind of experience versus search to make the step without a significant investment in human intellectual capital and a desire to enter that market.
Well, I think we have to change the way we think about education. Vijay was talking about barriers, the hidden barriers. There's one barrier that I think we all need to address, and that is how individuals learn. There's a rate of differences between how you learn, right? We all know that. As IITians, you guys were, much faster learners than a poor child in a village. Not that that poor child couldn't remember or learn. Google-like, maybe not Google-like, but something like Khan Academy-like, places will come up that will start giving these students the right to learn whatever the way they want to learn. And it won't just be about learning, it will be about application. I picked up this shampoo, Waterlust shampoo the other day from a pharmacy. And you don't need, I thought about who designed that. Those are needs, and that might be a small innovation. These are the kind of things that we need. So I think we will get a lot more changes in education, and it may not just come from our organized structure. You won't have grades. You won't have the first grade, second grade, fourth grade, whatever. There'll be a much broader band, diffused band to learn from.
Let me just add one point to that. I think in 10 years, there'll be no company like Google giving a degree, but I think there'll be distance education platforms like Neeru was talking about. Having said that, I think one needs to be able to differentiate between content delivery, skill acquisition, and development of the individual. The role of a university is not just content delivery and skill acquisition. It is also the development of the individual in that 18 to 22 year time frame, which is one of the most important time frames in your lifetime, right? And I don't see how that is going to be replicated in a scalable way. I'm not saying it will never happen. I'm just kind of confused and nervous that it won't happen. Maybe there's new modes of social media, I don't know, but I think we need to think about that, because without that, the hold of the universities on the cost structure doesn't go away. And until we break that hold, we cannot scale that effectively.
Okay. Actually, my question to Neeru and picking up.
Mention your name.
Yeah, I'm Biplab from IIT Kharagpur. And just the question to Neeru, and I think Pradeep also can answer it because he was just saying it. See, the Wikipedia has been probably my greatest teacher for last 5 years, and I
Sorry,
think
can you start again?
Wikipedia, I have to admit that become my greatest teacher. No matter all the greatest teacher I have in IIT, I think Wikipedia is so far the best teacher. And also I think for any product development you talk about, we are learning everything from technology forums, and every corporate is actually encouraging that. So my question to you is that I'm seeing that text-based education is becoming completely obsolete as a survival skill in any profession. So do you think beyond middle school, there will be any value for text-based education? Don't we need to focus more on social media-based education right from the middle school, high school or middle school?
I think you have to be a little bit careful. I'm all for individual learning, I'm all for ethics-based learning, but you have to remember not everyone is self-motivated learner. That not everyone is able to learn. They need mentors. They can't just get it from social media. They actually need somebody giving them feedback. Some people just have to, even things like, looking at your and my faces, think about if we had you presenting that question to me via sound only. What would I know about that question? Could I, get that question, the gist of that question, just by hearing the sound? I think not. I think you need to have some amount of that interaction, human-to-human interaction. Until machines can do that, I think we need mentors and teachers.
But it's not that the Wikimedia has resolved it, because Wikimedia is there because you can actually have all the reference thing that you missed. You are connecting the dots.
Yeah, so let me just look at it slightly differently, right? So run the following thought experiment. So take 4 years of knowledge that you would have gotten in 4-year education, right? And let's run the following experiment. Person A has that knowledge and randomly samples the knowledge so that at the end of 4 years, he or she has learned all of that, or sampled all the points. Person B goes through a formal process of learning calculus 1, calculus 2, biochemistry 1, biochemistry 2. I don't know the outcome of this experiment. My hunch is that a little bit of formality in education, in content acquisition, would lead to better results because of these fundamental ideas that you pick up, that you're able to connect, that you're able to build upon. So the fact that you are effective after having gone to a college in Wikipedia does not mean that if you insist that other people don't go to college, that they will be as effective. So be careful, because you're forgetting that you went to college.
Okay, very good. So you had a question, sir.
Sandhya Palma from 1989 Roorkee. I'm an inventor, innovator, and now turned educator. My question is to Pradeep. You mentioned about higher education, and I know you're from the IIT, and so you know the hierarchical attitude that exists in IITs, BTechs on the top, MTechs, MSCs. So how do you see the empowerment of the ones that are MTechs and MSCs? Because those are the people that can actually address some of the higher education that Herb was talking about earlier. How do you see empowering them?
So, let's see, I don't know if I quite understand the question. I think the problem in that system, the same type of hierarchy exists even in the US system, where the Ivy Leagues consider the undergraduates as their real alum, because that's like the first marriage. The master's, PhD are like, the second and third marriages, right? So the commitment is a little bit not the same. But I think that's not the issue, though, is one of hierarchy limiting a person's ability to ask the right questions and innovate at the right level. It's not about how the institution views you in terms of being an alumni or not, right? It is that in a hierarchical system, you're not as great a researcher. The same smart kid in India is not as effective as at Yale or Harvard or CMU, because the ecosystem is very different. There's no hierarchy, it's flat. You're able to ask questions.
So the content is king, but context is. Robert?
I'm Robert Bob Nathan from IIT Madras, 1977. I'm a businessman, and I live in a county called Prince George's County in Washington, D.C. It's a minority county, rather affluent, and the achievement gaps in the K-12 section is really disastrous, and the District of Columbia also. to Secretary and to Nero, we have, I think most of what we're talking is futuristic, drastic change, intervention, etc. But we have a problem right now. The president says, hey, I'm going to spend the next stimulus on education, building the schools, rehiring teachers, and I have the achievement gap in the county that wants to develop, bring the jobs out there. How are we going to achieve that? How, where is the intervention? Is it in the academic delivery right now, I think? Because we are constrained by the text-based education, the need to have the grades, because that's what's measuring in the end. How do we attack that problem?
Good. I mean, I think that Nero hit it right on the head before. The good news for us is that we recognize that we have to improve the system that we have with the students and the teachers that we have in it. What we've not been able to do is figure out how do you dramatically improve the effectiveness of teachers in classrooms by giving them tools and resources that are different than what they use today. Right? I mean, if you think about what we ask a teacher to do in a classroom that's as diverse as what you find in Prince George's County, walk into a class of 35 children and know exactly what each student needs and is interested in without the benefit of any tool other than colored markers. Right? So what Nero has been able to do is create a platform that allows for the teachers to figure out exactly where each student is and to match that to more appropriate instructional approaches and resources. Through that kind of content, how long did it take leadership to make that improvement? So 2 years, from 5% to 90% in 2 years. Right? What we haven't figured out how to do is to take that kind of work, which we should all be paying attention to as a country, and scale it. PG County should this year be in a third of their schools piloting this program because it's so much better than anything they've got. That doesn't happen, and that's where we have to go next.
I'd like Nero to address that.
I think Jim just
Thank you,
pretty
Jim.
much took care of it. And my philosophy is that the way we educate students is completely wrong. If they're behind, we actually try to get them where we want them to be rather than coming down to where they might be and slowly giving them scaffolding to keep going further and learning. Today you know how to add 2 plus 2. Tomorrow you say 22 plus 22. Then you say 2, 2, 2 plus 2, 2, 2. So you keep adding to their knowledge, scaffolding their knowledge. And I think that is the only way you'll bridge the gap. Otherwise it's too difficult.
Very good. So, Hiten, then that gentleman, then that gentleman, then that.
I'd like to take this, one of the things, bills, education thing. And, past experiences, we have a pool of ideas, very little on execution. So one of the challenges your panel will be given is 1 or 2 takeaways. Common problem, common solution. Let me start with the next comment. In this country, we don't worry about the higher education. Our problem is below. Absolutely right. But about India, we're all from IITs, great staff. But what are the problems? 70% of the people live in the village. So the issue that is in front of you, does the NIT alumni has a role to play in this common problem and what it should be? Because you have the chance of all the directors and all is here. So that's the one, if you could focus, we should have a common connection. What should we do? There's no point of talking about the very higher thing, that's a big address. But the common problem is a different area. That's where the Nero's thinking, method of education, how to reach the village. But that's what our problem is. We have a right for every children for education. Government has taken that position. And Kapil Sibal is steering his here apart. How am I going to get the teachers? So try to address that part.
Right, so.
Because the summit is coming, education summit is coming, and we have to come back with the 1 or 2 things where you can present to the principal that this is what the IIT community can contribute. So I like to address that.
Great. We will get, yes, sir.
Vinod Junjunwala, MIT 1965. Even about the point of the education in villages, is there a move or should it start from the villages itself? Because that is, after all, that is the foundation. The children grow up, they learn, and they gradually move up. That's my question to the panel.
So, go ahead,
Just quickly, yes, there are lots of pilots happening in the villages. They've put in broadband connections so we can provide computers to the villages with kids. And we are doing a lot of content, simpler systems for village teachers, village students, and helping the teachers out too. I think it was Vijay Kumar or Raj Kumar in Carnegie Mellon.
Raj Reddy.
Raj Reddy.
Raj Reddy.
Raj Reddy.
Raj Reddy is doing a program where he's directly involved in that program.
Yeah, so let me add to, so I think if you look at what Neil was saying, and if you're able to scale it, it would have a tremendous impact on educating K through 12, regardless of location.